It's Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, 4:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Law Enforcement, Public Health, Safety, and Welfare Committee meeting into order. First, let's begin with a moment of silence. Mr. Root, would you like to lead us in prayer?
Sure. Pray with me if you'd like to. Well, Father, thank you for this time to prepare as committees do and organize the data and get all the information to pass along to council so it can deliberate. Help this to be an efficient use of time, an orderly use of time. Give this committee your wisdom and let this be your meeting. I pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right, pledge of allegiance. Ms. Brock, would you like to lead us?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
which
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the April 20th, 2021 meeting minutes. Any motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next is discussion items. First being discussion regarding an incentive program for nonprofit organizations to receive funding for picking up litter. I have some feedback.
Yeah, I'm gonna get John.
Sheriff
Work on
Crenshaw.
that. I'm sorry. Thank you. You want me to text James?
Thank you, sir.
Or you want me to text John Michael? I don't need one. I'm good. This will be on the backup materials in the morning. I'm sorry, we're a little distracted because of the feedback. One more time, Tommy.
It's good online.
Okay. It's already on there.
We good, Mr. Chairman? Proceed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council, and Madam Administrator. Before you is a program that's really been a partnership. Ms. Brock is kind of at the top of the list here, helping put all this together. Quinn County, the Sheriff's Office, and COBA, Keep Oconee Beautiful Association, in a new initiative that everyone has agreed to, #OurOconee. I think you all have addressed and have heard problems with litter. You agreed to fund an additional environmental services officer last year to give us two officers, but you and I both realize we can't do it alone. We can't do it ourselves. So thanks to our friends, and we give acknowledgement at the end, but Pickens County come up with this program of being able to incentivize litter pickup, of offering nonprofits so much money a mile to pick up litter in Pickens County. And I had saw it. Ms. Brock had saw it as well. She had been working on it. I think had already gotten a lot of the information from Pickens County. And so, that's what we're here today before you to talk about and discuss. And we would like to go forward with this. In the outline, we talked about, who would be eligible. The goal, I guess, in the overview, hopefully with this Our Oconee initiative, is to clean up at least 20% of the roads in Oconee County in 2021, possibly 2022 fiscal year. The eligible organizations would be any nonprofit, school, business, or civic group that has been in existence for at least 1 year prior to application for or submittal of an application for the program. must provide us with the following: proof of a 501c3 status, of course, the W-9 form to be completed, proof of liability insurance, and then individual liability waivers for each participant. An additional requirement is that everyone must be at least 16 years of age on the application process. The way this program would work, someone, nonprofit group, contacts us, wants to pick up litter and get paid so much a mile. Fill out the application process. The sheriff's office would assign them a road. They wouldn't get to pick what area of the county they wanted to pick up. We would assign that, and I think that's important because we take inmates out every day to pick up, so we don't want no overlap of a group picking a road on their own, and then we've already used inmates the week prior picking up that same area of road. Of course, location assignments will depend on the number of applications, and they can request a location, but if it's no longer available, then we would coordinate to find a suitable location for them. And there'd be some factors in that depending on the age of the group, where we would place them, where we would put them in the county. Verification process, that's something that the sheriff's office would do. We would notify us at least 1 week prior to their scheduled cleanup event. At their cleanup, they must take pictures before and after their stretch of road, clean both sides of the road, even if it's a split highway, the median as well. It's outlined what the area they would clean from tree line, property line, to the edge of the pavement. Record the number of full bags that they picked up, as well as the number of tires, furniture, etc. Of course, any hazardous materials they would not be responsible for. Once that verification has been completed, then it's incumbent upon the organization to remove all those trash bags and dispose of them at one of the designated waste facilities in the county, and then submit a follow-up report to COBA, and certainly to return any equipment that was loaned to them, such as trash grabbers, vests, things like that. We would then go out, our environmental services unit would then go out and verify that the entire road segment had been cleaned and was cleared. Award of funds. Upon verification that an organization had cleaned a section of road or a mile of road, they would be awarded, and this is in conjunction with what Pickens County is currently doing, a sum of $250 per mile, not to exceed 10 miles per year for a nonprofit group. The award would be sent by Oconee County via check within 30 days after cleanup. All cleanups must be completed within the designated calendar year. Of course, if they didn't clean it up, no funds would be awarded, and they certainly could reapply. We will have more information available on our website. We will have a tab of #ROConey, hashtag #ROConey on the Sheriff's Office website that will have things such as safety videos, liability waivers, cleanup tips, checklist of requirements that's required for the program, as well as the follow-up template that the organization must submit. Currently, Oconee County will commit $10,000 to the Keep Oconee Beautiful Association to assist with administration of this program. Talking with our administrator, this will come from the community safety line item in the budget, and we're looking at the potential, if you approve this, to go forward. By my understanding, I think council's already given you guidance to go forward.
They have, yes, sir.
We're just kind of letting you know how we would like to implement the program as a group. Looking at maybe starting this September the 1st. If you've got any thoughts, questions, there may be something that comes up as we go through the program. But in working between COBA, the county, and the sheriff's office, we do believe that this is a good plan to go forward. After 1 year of the program, we'll review the annual pickup data. We would like to probably hold an award ceremony, maybe here in council chambers, for those groups to come and be recognized. possibly by yourself. We talked about an app, it may be something that we look at in the future as well, developing an app that citizens actually download. And as I mentioned at the beginning, certainly a special thanks to Pickens County for setting the example for what I believe is a great program. I know I looked at it, Ms. Brock had been looking at it, and thankfully we talked with each other and COBA as well. Ms. Brock, I don't know if you have anything additional to add?
Just Mr. Kane originally brought this idea from Pickens County. I believe it was a council member. I reached out to the administrator, Mr. Ken Roper. He's been awesome to work with. We even texted back and forth today, how do you implement this? How's this part working? Are there ins and outs we need to know? There's some tweaks that they've had to do in their program, and I think we're going to learn from them being a few steps ahead of us. But this is a great thing for us. It's a great thing for the private nonprofits. It's a great thing for civic groups, school groups, and it's the cheapest way to get the roads cleaned up. And the Our Oconee, we've always hashtagged the Your Oconee, like it does belong to you and us and all of us. But the Our Oconee does make it inclusive. I'm awfully grateful to the sheriff. Through Pickens County, it was run through their Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department because they didn't have a litter control division in their sheriff's office. Spartanburg is running a similar program through their road department. But with the current employee issues that we're having, I don't know that we were going to have the resources and the know-how, the ins and outs of which roads would be better to pick up, which roads we know we have traffic issues on or safety issues. And we certainly want to make sure that anyone volunteering is put in the best position possible to help achieve their objective of getting the money and helping us clean up roadway litter safely at the same time. Great partnership for us.
We know how Pickens County got the word out to people.
They did some press releases and media packets. I think once we get the fine-tuning part done on our internal processes, programs, creating checklist, to make sure when we go to pay these that we have funding and the coding set correctly. So when we go back in 3 to 5 years, we can evaluate how we're doing. I think we'll be able to come up with a pretty significant social media, radio. We can go out, Sheriff and I'm sure a lot of you even go to groups and speak. Honest to goodness, I know that the word is not a great word in this council chambers for the most part, but there are a lot of existing billboards that I think would grab some attention, especially if we focused on the major highways in the triangle in the cities and started branching out from there. I don't feel like we're going to have trouble getting the word out.
Good.
Just having some knowledge of what they're doing in Pickens, they actually had when they first implemented it and put it out there, they had so many willing to sign up for it, it was kind of overwhelming. So I kind of feel like it'll be that way. A lot of these groups do already pick up for us, which is great. And, but in being able to reward them and their organization for that is great, because these are organizations that support our citizens. And so I think, putting this out there, enhancing litter pickup has always been, honestly, I've had a good time picking up litter. As much as I pick up just around my house, it's amazing what accumulates in a short period of time. So for those groups that do it without having an award, this is something that for the first time they'll be able to see something that they can do for their organizations that they're a part of or decide what organization. There's a lot of retirees that are board members or support certain organizations, and so they can do it on behalf of that organization as well, which is what they've seen a lot of in Pickens County, which has been really good. So I appreciate y'all taking this on. Like I said, Pickens County has really already designed it and knows the ins and outs of it, and that's a good to have working order of a program like this, so it's easy for us to implement it. So
We really hope by us managing it, I think we can cover, our Lieutenant Crumpton's with us today as well, supervisor in our environmental services, but, through COBA, we know the Adopt a Highway who's adopted a highway, who's adopted a spot. So we would have those locations, and we know what areas inmates are picking up. So this would be even more that hopefully that we can put out there to get additional litter picked up throughout our county. Any concerns or any thoughts?
No, I know Pickens is rolling it out. I didn't know how many, if they've actually had people go out yet or not, but Rose is a mess, and I think everybody appreciates it, so.
Like I said, September 1st, we'll start getting the word out and advertising, and maybe need an update by the end of the year, how it's progressing.
That works perfect.
Thank you, Sheriff.
We don't need a motion to bring out okay. Yes, sir.
Yep. It's already been motioned right out of one committee.
That's right.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is discussion regarding animal control ordinance, and that's also Sheriff Crenshaw. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
As you all are aware, we have been evaluating our policies, procedures at the animal shelter over the last several months, and wanted to give you something to consider and get some feedback from you and possible changes to our current animal control ordinance. That would involve several changes, but one would be a managed intake, as you can see there. Currently, under our county ordinance, anyone can take any animal they want to the shelter, no questions asked, and we take it, if it's domesticated. And the thought, and you're looking at best practices now, as the recommendation is to go to a managed intake program. What we mean by that, if you show up at the shelter with your animal, we're going to try to talk with you in conjunction with the Humane Society. If you're having a problem with feeding that animal, the Humane Society is going to try to give you some dog food or cat food, give you the resources that you need to possibly keep that animal and not turn it in. If you insist on turning that animal in, instead of bringing that animal into the shelter, what managed intake would entail would be that, we would go ahead and take pictures of that animal, and then you take that animal back home with you, and we're going to tell you, you've got to keep it up to 2 weeks while we start trying to find a home for this animal, whether it's through a rescue, through somebody else that's willing to adopt it based off the pictures we take, and trying to keep that animal from ever even coming into the shelter. And if we find a home or Humane Society finds a rescue for that animal, then we may call you in 4 days and say, bring it on. So that's what we're talking about in managed intake. Obviously, when we work with Mr. Root and go through the ordinance changes, there would be some exceptions to that. Example, your mother dies and has got an animal. That may be a situation or something where there's nowhere else for that animal to go. We would take that animal in. That's, like I say, part of the best practices that we are looking at is to go away from our current system, our current ordinance, that we just, want your animal, you take it to the shelter, and we take it, no questions asked. To putting some of that responsibility back on that animal owner, in trying to help them, one, to keep that animal, but two, trying to find a location for that animal before it ever comes into the shelter. So, any thoughts on that or any concerns with that?
I think that's a great idea, to have people hold it until you can get it adopted out. The unintended consequence on that is some people will just
Turn it loose.
Yeah.
I've thought that as well. Of course, the experts, the data that they study say that, that doesn't happen, but I'm sure some will. So managed intake and TNR, trap and release. This would mainly apply to feral cats. You know, currently, if a feral cat comes to the animal shelter, and over the years, if a feral cat came to the animal shelter, it's not adoptable. Basically, we had to euthanize it. And of course, that's caused our euthanasia numbers to get up into the ranges that's currently not considered best practices. You know, our goal was to have a live release rate above 90%. And I think we've averaged in the 60% range of saving animals. So, you know, this would really help us, and to do a TNR program that would be run by the Humane Society. Basically, they go out, they set traps, they catch these feral cats, and then they take them, get them spayed or neutered, and then they take them back out into the community. There would be some changes, there would be some definitions in our ordinance. If it's a nuisance cat, defining a nuisance cat from a feral cat. You know, if it would meet the definition of a nuisance cat, you know, in the ordinance, you know, you're having a particular problem with this cat, whatever, around your home, then it may qualify as a nuisance cat, and we would actually, you know, take that cat in. But that would be another structure change that possibly will require some funding. You know, in order to trap or to spay and neuter a cat right now, the prices that the Humane Society is looking at is $100 to $125 an animal to trap that animal and release it back into the community. Currently, what they're hoping to do with the $80,000 that you give them or give us for them to use for the low income spay neuter, if someone can pay a $10 copay or a $20 copay or $30 copay, then they take that money, and so the plan would be hopefully to whatever money's left in those copays to apply it toward the TNR, trap, neuter, and release. But being up front with you, it may require some additional funding from council if we really want to move in the direction to having a true TNR program where we don't take any cats at the shelter. And that's currently the way some shelters are setting themselves up. Dangerous animal would be another structure change, you know, kind of better detailing that. We've also got in here let's see, where was it? Tracking, dangerous animal, additional tracking and registry. I think that would be a benefit to our citizens to know if they're coming into the county, moving into a neighborhood, we have a registry. That if an animal has been classified as a dangerous animal by the courts, that someone can go to this registry and look it up so that they're not moving their family and kids in next door to an animal that's been deemed by the courts as a dangerous animal. Like I say, the community cats, allowance of community cats that would match the TNR program, nuisance cats, defining what a nuisance cat is, boarding facilities and rescues, you know, allowing some inspections of those by animal control personnel for the safety of everyone. Multiple violations, we currently don't have. You know, you can get as many violations as you want under our current ordinance, and there's no repercussions in losing that animal. Well, you know, maybe we kind of think after a certain number of violations, maybe you need to lose that animal. If certain stipulations are met. You know, currently the Humane Society does microchip all animals when they're adopted, but it's not in the ordinance that it's a requirement for an animal leaving the facility. Parking lot sales. You know, if someone at the jockey lot at the flea market, I guess the flea market in Oconee, we don't have a jockey lot, but to flea market, you know, if they're selling cats on Saturday, dogs on Saturday, you know, we think it's important that they have, those animals at least have their rabies vaccinations up to date. So covering that in the ordinance as well. Field euthanasia, you know, sometimes an animal gets run over, injured on the side of the road, being able to euthanize that animal as documented in our county ordinance. you know, there'll be some other changes, but I guess at this point, kind of looking for you for guidance, and if you want us to move in this direction. You know, obviously, your role was to set the county ordinance, and my role is to enforce it. So, you know, what direction do you want animal services to go to move? Do you want us to move toward best practices? Would you like us to put together maybe some more detail in an ordinance with Mr. Root and let you review it from there? But it's definitely going to be different, and citizens will have to, again, get this out to citizens that you can no longer just go down to the shelter and drop the animal off. You know, we've got to be able to educate our citizens on that. We're actually trying to pilot that a little bit now, and it's working fairly well. So we haven't had a lot of issues with it, just in trying to pilot and educate folks, trying to get folks to keep their animal when they come there. You know, we can only hold about 150 animals at the shelter. And if we don't change something or do something different, we're not going to get our euthanasia down. You know, they're going to keep coming in, and we're going to have to keep euthanizing some of them, unfortunately. So that's our thoughts on it. Look for any questions or any comments that you may have and direction as to how we should go forward.
So the catch and release, I mean, how do you envision that? Releasing them back, primarily about where you caught them from, or?
That's part of it. Tommy, if you want to come on up. You know, they would try to have a database. You know, if a farmer had a barn, wanted a barn cat, you know, that obviously that animal would go to these farmers that may want, you know, cats to keep rats out of their barns and things. But if it was not classified as a nuisance cat, that's the best practices recommended, that it would go back in, that cats can easily survive in the communities. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. So the lifespan of these cats range on average about 2 to 3 years. And by doing this, it'll help with controlling that population. But the bigger part of it is actually educating the people out in the public. For example, you could have elderly people that might be feeding the cats and stuff like that. If they stop doing that, then these cats will migrate out to other places. So that the education part of it is a big part of it, but then the controlling the backside of it too. Right now, what we're seeing is just every year we're dealing with the same numbers over and over and over again, and we've been doing it for years and years, and it hasn't worked. You know, so this type of program has been done out west and things, and they're seeing positive numbers now. Yes, it's going to take some years to get to where we want to, but of course they're seeing positive numbers, and I think we would too with this type of program.
So how would you identify where the cats are to you? I mean, complaints?
Yes, sir, you could do that, and then the Humane Society, they're controlling the bigger part of this. We're more of an assist to them. You could get complaints off of it, and then they people that they've got set aside would actually go out and do the trapping with these cats. Now, some of the cats, we have to make sure that they are the feral cats, and there's things that they do in a safe way that dictates if they are feral. Now, when we say releasing them back out there, if someone calls and says, hey, we've got these cats and they're feral, we're not going to take them. If we trap them in their front yard, we're not releasing them back into their front yard, right? So the release might be in that, we'll say, neighborhood, but it's not going to be directly towards these people. And then that's where the education comes in too. Make sure that you don't have food left out and things like that. So the cats, when we do release them in the neighborhood, not so much in their yard, they probably will not come back to there. So that's going to fix a lot of it too. But the brunt of it, yes, sir, will come from complaints and things that are coming in.
That was just my next question, is if it's complaints, how you then identify it's not a nuisance?
With the nuisance part of it would be, has these cats bit someone? Are they damaging vehicles? And if we can prove all of that, then we're going to take another step to it. We're not going to just take the cat, trap it, and then return it right back out there to that. If we can prove that it is a nuisance, being something like that, and I wouldn't be able to tell you every nuisance, right? It'd be like a case-by-case thing, but yeah, we would step in when we deemed that to be a nuisance. We would step in and we would take care of it, because we do have options. I was out at a house the other day. This lady was actually asking for some of these cats to go to her barn because of snakes and and rats and things like that. So we do have options for that too.
Let's have any questions.
On the number 5, you're talking about boarding facilities, rescues, allowing inspections, warrantless. Is that a complaint driven or what?
Yeah, so right now, when we talk about being able to go and do that, what we want to do is, and have the backing of the ordinance, is to be able to make sure that when we release these animals to a rescue, that it is a legitimate rescue, and we're not releasing an animal to a place that's worse than where we got it from, right? In order for us to do that, we're going to have to go out and look at these places and make sure that they're good. Just the other day, we assisted Seneca City, that we went into a house and it was terrible, right? And this place was listed as a rescue. So we want to try to get in front of that so that's not going to happen.
So on the, I guess we probably need to spell that out a little better, that a rescue facility would be inspected prior to being approved as a rescue facility, rather than, I don't like the word warrantless. It seems like it could be, because if that's what we're kind of after, I think spelling it out a little bit better would be cleaner. Because I'm not against,
I think what he
on a
meant by that
complaint.
is covering us in the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Giving us the authority to go out and do that inspection without a warrant is.
Right, and I'm
But
good with
after-
that. I'm good with that if we spell that out a little different,
Yeah.
rather than warrantless, because it'll make people shake a little bit.
Sure.
I think with that, on those rescue facilities, there's some support that we could possibly give if they're doing the job that y'all are approving them to do. Maybe there's some ways that we can incentivize those to keep them out, because they're costing us to be in there with us. So maybe there's some ways we can incentivize through spay and neutering and things like that. But just probably want to spell that out a little different if the
Yes, sir.
committee agrees with that a little bit.
And what we would want to do is that go hand in hand with almost like a checklist. In order for you to gain that, like what you're saying, you have to meet certain qualifications for that. That would help with that too.
So if somebody wants to be a rescue, I'm unfamiliar with it, they have to apply? What did it, so the way I see it is, if they apply, then they almost sign to agree to inspections, same as if you have a restaurant for DHEC inspections or something of that matter.
That's true, but there's nothing written, and there's
Yeah.
nothing in our ordinance now that allows that. Is basically what we're saying, so.
And then there's nothing saying that, we can come back and make sure that you upholding to your part, to your act that you signed for.
I agree with Mr. Davis, just need to be careful how we word that, and that's very well laid out, that is part of that.
So the boarding facilities on that and the rescue facility is kind of a little different. So I guess, are we looking to make motions on the changes? Is that kind of what we're
I think at this point, because,
discussion?
if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
I believe that the sheriff's department meant this just to be an outline form to take off on. So I don't think it was imagined that this is going to be specific for the ordinance.
Okay.
So, Sheriff, that's correct. This is essentially an outline form. It wasn't specific wording
No.
for the ordinance, but these would be things, jumping points that we take off from. So a good motion would be, motion to direct the county attorney to work with the sheriff's office to develop proposed changes to the animal control ordinance as discussed and bring it back to full council for consideration.
So moved.
Second.
There's some things in our ordinance that doesn't quite match up with state law, so we want to mirror those as well. We've got some other ordinances that we looked at. Lexington County actually came up here and did some training for us, and we looked at their ordinance. So, we'll be looking at some other county ordinances. But Mr. Davis, kind of an oversight on our part. I don't know that we're really interested in boarding facilities.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that's something that we would put in the actual ordinance.
Restaurant-
Unless y'all feel like we need to be inspecting those, but mainly rescues. Any animal that's gonna be coming from us, going to a rescue, having a checklist and an approval process that you approved. And then maybe a yearly reinspection, go out and take a look at it. But unless you deem it necessary, I don't know that we would really need to be inspecting boarding facilities for animals.
So we got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
The next item on the discussion list is solid waste update for fiscal year 2021 by Mr. Swain Steele.
Want to come up here?
Good afternoon. All righty. First of all, we'd like to start off with saying we did receive our expansion permit from DHEC. It covers the entire 88.5 acres of our closed MSW landfill there on the corner of Seneca or Wells Highway and Strawberry Farm Road. We also received a tonnage increase from 36,000 tons to 87,000 tons per year. We ended up having to do that since last year we took over our permitted amount due to a tornado. But then also this year we continually see increases, and we'll cover that. The life expectancy has, based off of our 5-year average, we have about 78 years. Based off our last year's tonnage of 59,000, we end up about 48 years, and with our tonnage limit of around 32. So we have between 32 to 78 years of life added to our landfill. One thing we are having to permit is an extra borrow area for soil. We're in that process now. We started that back at about March or April. Hopefully sometime this year we'll get the approval so we can start using cover dirt from a different area. Here we have a lot of information, but just want to give you an idea of where we've been and where we're at. Going back 10 years, you can see where we were. You can see those from that standpoint there. We've had some didn't have a lot of tonnage coming in. 12 years ago, we were coming out of the recession. This is where we first started seeing the numbers increase. This past year, we took in over 143,000 tons of material that we managed at the landfill or at the transfer station. These numbers have increased substantially. Just in the last 10 years, we've seen a 49% increase in our tonnage through our transfer station and over 40% in the last 5 years. We've seen it go all the way from, our biggest thing is our total tonnage. We're managing at the landfill, transfer station, our recycled C&D material that we're taking in. From block, brick, dirt, soil, materials of that nature. We've also seen an increase in our recyclables. We're still, even with last year and the numbers, and also with some of the restrictions we've been placed upon us by our vendors that we sell to, we were still able to recycle 4,329 tons of material last year. One thing I really want to show with all this increase, we've been talking with Ms. Brock, our employees, our equipment operators have stayed relatively the same. We've had 10. We will talk about that a little bit more as we go through.
Go ahead.
There we go. Like I said, we managed 84,000 tons at the landfill. We're open 6 days a week to the public. Transfer station, we're open 5.5 days as far as we load waste for 5.5 days. And the MRF as well. We handle 59,000 tons there. We have 10 equipment operators, and just to give you an idea of what they do, I know some discussion was made during the budget process about some of our equipment operators. Our transfer station requires 2 people a day. One's loading the trailers, one's actually running the compactor system that we've got. It takes 2 people per day to actually operate that system. The landfill, years ago, we could operate with 1 person per day over there. One person they could push the waste out, compact it, and didn't have to worry about it. They could take an hour compacting and then come back around and push out. Now it's 1 person is pushing out, another person is constantly compacting the waste on the landfill itself with the amount of waste that's coming in. They're constantly doing that 6 days a week. From the standpoint of the other issues that are things that we handle out there, including the covering, the mowing, the operating of the mulching facility, it takes anywhere approximately 2 to 4 staff are needed for those additional items just to stay in DHEC compliance. Our MRF, which is our material recovery facility that our recyclables are baled and get prepared for shipment, we typically operate that with 1 or 2 individuals. Typically it's been 1 and they jump in there and they've been working a lot of overtime to keep up. Our garbage, recyclables, and miscellaneous pulls that we pull each day, typically to stay caught up, we have to have approximately 4 drivers daily upon those to stay efficient. And there's a commercial and school recycling route that we operate. There's at least requires 1 driver for a full day, 52 days a year. We make pulls on Thursdays. And there have been times we've had to make additional pulls, especially when the schools are letting out in this summer and then going back at the end of the summer. They fill their containers several times. They have to match it there. We've had, as Ms. Brock mentioned earlier, we're having, just like everyone else, staffing issues. This past year, we went 17 weeks where we had all the positions filled. Besides that, we went 26 weeks with only 8 positions filled, and we currently are at roughly 23 weeks with only 8 positions filled. We hopefully have someone starting next week, but it wasn't really like we hired somebody else. They actually transferred from another department. So it's still, positions are still not getting filled from just a public standpoint. We actually went 12 weeks without a single application, and a lot of the applications are coming in or they're not even qualified, don't have a CDL, can't even operate equipment. So we're having struggles at that point. We had 3,757 garbage pulls last year. And that's garbage, recyclables, miscellaneous pulls. Miscellaneous pulls may be something that we have to go pick up from facility maintenance. They have something somewhere they're working on, or there may be facilities or going out to some of the cleanups they've had. We consider that miscellaneous and picking up those items as well. Sorry. Out of those pulls, 65% of those are garbage pulls. They're garbage pulls that we pull every day. And garbage comes first. Garbage has to come first. Because nobody wants to come to a recycle center where it stinks. They want to make sure they come there and they can be able to throw their trash away. And we've had issues where the waste or recyclables have gotten backed up. And that's just because we've not had enough staff to be able to adequately go. Our average time to pick up at the centers have gone from 1 to 2 days several years ago. Now we're at 3 to 4 days, depending on how many staffing. There's times last year we were down 40 to 50% of our staff due to either sickness or vacation or just vacant positions not being filled. That's part of the main update for the update portion of it. The rest of it's going on into the brown goods. Do I need to continue that or?
You should, I'm sorry, I was doing something else, so you should be.
Okay, all right. As far as going into the brown goods discussion, brown goods, there's questions that we're asked to present some information on brown goods. What are brown goods? First of all, we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Brown goods are furniture, pretty much. Couches, chairs, wooden bed frames, tables, same things that the sheriff's office pick up and consider brown goods, what we consider brown goods. Things that are not considered brown good, mattresses, we take those at the Strawberry Farm site. We have 3 bins there allocated for it. We took in over 300 tons last year, or right at 300 tons at the strawberry site. And also at the transfer station, they can bring those there on Wednesdays when we're closed. Household trash, that automatically goes to the centers or the transfer station, lumber, C&D landfill, C&D material, brush, leaves, land clearing debris, it all goes to the landfill. Give you a little history on brown goods. From 1995 to 2003, the centers took in brown goods. They were accepted at all of them except Strawberry Farm. If you recall, the old Strawberry Farm Center was very, very small. They did not have room to put a container there. Plus, it was located right beside the landfill, so it was easier for people to just take it straight to the landfill. But then, the centers at that time were open 6 days a week. They were open Monday through Saturday. They had 31 full-time staff and a few part-time staff over the years during that time frame. The landfill was only open 5 days per week at that time. They were open a half day on Wednesday and a half day on Saturday. But then, due to the number of pulls, they were making between almost 1,000 pulls. The plans to open the landfill for 6 days a week and plans to close centers on Wednesdays. Brown goods were no longer accepted as of June or July of 2003. Population growth was a driving factor at that time. There was need for additional space for garbage compactors at some of the facilities, as well as some of the other recyclables that were being collected. There would just need more containers added for recycling paper, mixed paper, cardboard, and those items. At the time, some of the reductions, they did a reduction of staff at the recycle center because they closed on Wednesdays, and also because they were trying to save some funds at the time between those 2003 to 2005. They just through attrition and different means, if someone quit, they just didn't fill the position. They reduced it from 31 roughly down to 23 staff members. His total savings at that time was around $300,000 per year. Most of that came from salaries, but a lot was from transportation. 950 pulls coming throughout the county is a substantial savings. Currently, brown goods, I spoke with one of the both litter officers. They said brown goods make up about 15% of the roadside litter. Over 50% is just household trash. About 20% is like C&D type materials, and then 15% is like roadside litter, and about 5% is like appliances people throw out. Pros and cons of brown goods at the centers. Pros, you just add an additional service for the public. It reduces travel time for those who are outside of 10 miles from the landfill. And it may reduce to 15% of roadside litter caused by brown goods. The cons on that is very likely to increase our number of pulls by 40 to 85%, depending on how we make those pulls. And space is limited at the centers. A lot of the bulky are, especially downstairs, most of the facilities are maxed out already for larger items such as metal, tires, and then the cardboard and garbage. And then it may increase. Talking with other counties, Pickens and Anderson specifically, they've seen an increase of brown goods on the side of the roads when they get to the centers. If the centers, the container was full, they would have to go, they either took it back home or had to drive it to one of the landfills, especially in Anderson County. Anderson has 3 landfills around the county. If they were full, they either took it back home or took it to the landfill, but it ended up on the side of the road. So they had some issues there. So we come up with some options of what potentially could be. Option 1 would be to alternate centers monthly for 1 week at a time. You'd have 5 centers 1 month for a week, and then 5 centers at the next 5 centers, and not include Strawberry Farm since it's right there at the landfill. With 20-yard containers in the upstairs parking lot. We went with 20 yards because, as you know from the cleanups, 40 yards are hard to throw stuff over. 20 yards, they can still back up to the side of the container and unload something into it. Option 2 would provide 20-yard containers year-round in the upstairs parking area. Option 3 would be it's a big one where we're just making discussion. We've got centers that are already having problems with too much congestion. If you've ever been to Ebenezer on a busy day or Salem on a busy day, those centers are extreme. They may be backed out into the road, or you have extreme wait times. And we've looked at those centers there to, you could, if you expanded those centers, there's areas close by that could have those options, that you could actually expand, put more compactors in for garbage, more for cardboard. And there's also what they call it's called a brown goods crusher compactor. Instead of pushing straight into a compactor unit, it actually has a mechanism. It comes down, it presses against it, crushes it, and then pushes it into a container, which you can actually haul about 10 tons in when it's done that way. The other way, putting it in a 20-yarder, you're only going to haul about a ton and a half at the most. A couple couches can fill it up. And then option 4 is maintain current service levels. So kind of go over those, quit again.
That's not like the wooden desk.
So the cost of consideration of option 1, we're estimating about 1,200 tons per year would come in over those 12 weeks, which would be a average. We went high, we shot high for as far as how much tonnage we could put in. We were estimating between 1.5 to 1.75 tons per 20-yarder. You're looking at about 65 extra pulls per week during those time frames. Some of the considerations you would need, we would actually need at least 2 more roll-off trucks and 10 containers to be able to swap them out and keep them rolling. Additional fuel costs, you're looking at an average of around $11,000 a year. 2 additional drivers go on top of what we've got, just be able to manage that kind of pull because it'll be moving pretty quick. So that portion. Option 2, we're looking at estimating around 5,000 tons based off our numbers, based off also numbers from Pickens and Anderson County. It comes out about the same. The number of pulls are about the same as well. We looked at theirs, their numbers, and how they ranked up, and they are currently between 40 to 60% of their pulls are on brown goods alone. And so with this here, you would need at least 26 containers to make sure you had enough to keep rolling in and out from all the centers, and have a couple extra in case something breaks. Here on this part 2, this portion here with 3,300 additional pulls a year, you're talking substantial, because we only did 3,700 pulls for the whole year for garbage and and recyclables. You're looking at additional probably 3 staff and at least 2 trucks, just to make sure so we could keep everything rolling there. Last of all, or the third option, you'd have to find the land, expand 5 centers based off those numbers there, and what we've seen and the cost that we're looking at. 3 compactors for garbage, 2 for cardboard, 1 for brown goods. Brown goods compactors, they're twice the cost of a standard compactor. They average around 50 grand a year, or 50 grand per each. You would only need an extra 1 roll-off truck and still 2 drivers from the standpoint of being able to move about 500 additional pulls a year. Centers would actually need 6 additional clerks if you went this route. What we had looked at, this was actually be along the centers 2, which is Metromont, would cover the whole area from the Clemson area back around towards Salem. Then expand the centers of 4, 10, 5, and 2, which is the center is along Highway 11 corridor. It kind of splits the county. It would cut the trips in half for people for the average. And then you also could expand Center 8, which we own all the property around Center 8, which is out in the Five Forks at the camp. So we could actually put something in there. That way you would reduce the trips to just about nobody having to drive. For the most population, around 80 to 55% of the population wouldn't have to drive more than 10 miles to somewhere to dump something off. And then the other one would be maintain current service levels. We still said put 2 additional in there based off our numbers going forward. If we continue to grow as we have been growing over the next few years, we are gonna have to start adding some, especially even once we get to full staff, it's to add more just to maintain current service levels, because it's getting busy. With the amount of construction going on in the county and the rate of people moving in, we don't see any going back down unless we have a recession, which we hope that doesn't happen either. That being said, any questions?
Sir, I have a few.
Okay,
I want to ask you some easy ones early on. I'll come back to the brown goods.
okay.
The CDL drivers and equipment operators are starting, somebody you're hiring, what do you pay them?
Right now, current salary is about $12.80, I think $12.86 an hour. I believe that's what it,
80, I think it's 1286.
$12.86, I believe, after the last merit raise.
No wonder you can't find anybody. The chipper, the mulcher, is it up and operating?
It is operational. We just have not had the staff to be able to operate it this past year. We've borrowed it, we've used employees from the road department several times, but from that standpoint, right now, it's just, because once you've grinded, you also have to have staff to sit there and be able to disperse it to get it out of there. And we're also running into some other, DHEC changed the rules on compost this year, which mulch is not technically considered compost, but they lumped it all in. Now they require temperature monitoring weekly, which is not just a simple go out there and shoot a temp. It's every 10 feet, you got to dig 6 foot down into the mulch pile, check the temperature, roll it, cover it, and then move down 10 feet. So when you're fully loaded with mulch, you'll spend just about a day and a half with 1 or 2 employees out there just checking temperature. So right now, we've kind of put a hold on grinding material.
And then the compactors, the additional compactors, are they in, and when will they be installed? The
Well,
cardboard compactors.
our compactors are coming from Canada. We are at the point where they've ran into the issues of obtaining metal. We were told that they should come in August if nothing happens, so we're hoping, crossing our fingers. We talk with the guy about once a week just about it. They ran into an issue with the vendor who was going to install them. They couldn't get insurance certification to come on our property, so they had to find another installer, and they're coming out of Florida. So we're kind of back and forth there. So their biggest issue right now is they're trying to still build them for the price they quoted us, with the additional cost of metal.
And then, one last, the staffing numbers, does that include like the staffing service employees, or is that just county employees?
So
on the
that
staff?
included all, part-time as well.
And then the brown goods. So I think if we want to be serious about the county being clean, we need to offer some sort of brown goods solution. And I'm just talking, so I'd like to know what y'all think as well. Maybe the option where you rotate it, at least for a while, would be a good one, because then you could gather data too on which areas need it more so than others, you know. I think it would reduce dumping. I've got a mattress in my basement that's been down there for a year. I've just not had a chance to load it and drive it all the way off the mountain. Some people don't have a basement, so it goes wherever it goes, you know. It's not right, but we need to make it as easy as we can for people.
I don't like the rotation schedule. I'd rather just see 3 or 4. If we started with 3 locations and you picked them and just said, hey, if we, what's a convenient one, kind of form a triangle. Five Forks is a good one for that Westminster area, Long Creek, get you halfway there. Mattresses is one of those things a lot of people are, they may not appear on the roadside, but they're appearing on a lot of gravel roads and stuff like that, and brown goods are the same way. So I would think if you chose 3 areas that are outside, and I think you've touched on this, and we've talked about this, probably for several years, and we just hadn't pulled the trigger on it. But I would think you'd look at your outline areas and figure out what's the easiest way to do it, and start with 3. If you work on a rotation, it gets confusing. My goal would be if I pulled into Salem and I have a mattress, and they say, well, we don't take that here, but if you go, 6 minutes to, whether it's wherever it is, it's better than you saying, well, you gotta go all the way to Strawberry Farm.
Okay.
Especially for my outlying areas of my district and, Mountain Rest and the Salem district, those mattresses never make it to Strawberry Farm. And, for as many cleanups as I've done, the amount of mattresses that we clean up are burned coils because they get burned. That's what happens to a lot of them. And those are, to me, are more difficult to move than a sofa. Sofas will end up rotting, but those mattresses are there for forever. So I would think, even if you put one, in Walhalla, somewhere like that, the rotation to me would be a little bit confusing. I'm not against if it was in Mountain Rest, but I'm just thinking from coming down the mountain and dropping off at Walhalla and Westminster, those brown good areas there would be helpful. But Five Forks is easy because we own, having land to me decides on where you decide to put these.
Right.
That's the easiest way to figure it out, is to say, hey, we don't take it here at Mountain Rest, but 5 minutes down the road. The Strawberry Farm one's tough for a lot of people, and I understand that. And I've never understood why that's the only place to dump a mattress, because that place I've never seen it so busy. It's like Chick-fil-A.
It is.
I mean,
busy.
it's crazy.
It is.
So anything that we can do, because a lot of my district, that side uses Strawberry Farm, so anything we can do to kind of eliminate that. When you're going in there to drop a mattress off and it takes you 30 minutes to get through the line and you're not used to, hey, I can actually circle through Strawberry Farm and you're waiting in line for 35 minutes. I know people get a little bit upset at your staff, which actually does a phenomenal job. So, but I just think, like, if you just go ahead and set it and said, hey, here's the 3 locations, because we own the land and it's within. You think that would work in your district?
I think that's a valid point, because it could get confusing. If you pull up, you saw it there last week, or you might have saw it a month ago, and you think it's there, and you pull up, now it's there. That's very valid.
And the staff may not know where it's at either. I don't want them to have to go through the rotation.
Right.
And go, well, I think it's here, and then you send them there, and then they're calling you to say, I can't find the mattress thing. So then it's, if they go 2 places, I guarantee the 3rd place is going to be on somebody's property.
One question I would have them, would we limit the number of mattresses they could bring? Because what we have seen around the cities and outliers, especially where rental properties, they are having an influx. It's not like they're almost changing mattresses out monthly. The cities have seen that. We've had discussions with Westminster, Walhalla, and Seneca, that they're having major problems, especially if there's an area where there's a trailer park or something of that nature. So we've actually seen residents drive up with 10 on the back of their truck, and it's all from their home. So that's something to consider. And 10 mattresses would fill up a 40-yarder, let alone a 20-yarder.
So you're saying like landlords bringing a bunch of them in?
Well,
I have a
based on
question
the
too.
world of,
Change the slide back. Are we talking about brown goods or mattresses? Because those are not the same.
well, I'm talking about both being in a centralized station. So,
Mattresses would be difficult.
right, but mattresses are constantly out on roadsides, down gravel roads, and they stay there forever. So I think that on a mattress scenario, if we're getting mattresses like that, I mean, you're having an influx of bed bugs, which is why your landlords are cleaning out that stuff. So the other way I feel about it is, if there's with tires, they charge a fee and they limit that. I don't know how you could do that on what does it cost us to get rid of a mattress? Where do those go?
We send those to Homer.
Homer,
So it's 30, you're right, 35.
47.
35 a ton. I mean,
We could.
I think if somebody brings us 10 mattresses, it's 10 mattresses, it's not somewhere else. And I know that obviously having it at Walhalla or having it at Mountain Rest or whatever and having a smaller one, but now, if the same person brings 10 mattresses again and again, we
So we
need to
used to have
ask
the
if
same
they're a
problem with
mattress
tires.
company.
They would show up with 10 tires at one center, 10 tires at another. The same guy, we started tracking those and finally got that cut down. So, because it takes away from the resident has one, he goes down there and it's full and he can't get rid of it because somebody else because they were running a business or a system there. So that's things to consider. Okay.
I've never had a sofa dumped on my, around my house or farm, but I've had several mattresses thrown over the fence. And, so I just see that being an issue.
And probably what they see too is somebody's hauling a mattress and it flies off, they don't stop to pick it up. No.
Isn't that the rule?
That's pretty much the rule.
And it's also a safety issue. It's a long ways to go all the way down there with a mattress strapped to the top of your car or back of a.
I think if you start with 3, it makes it easier to focus on those. That's what I think.
I agree. So do we need to make a motion or do we need to?
You want us to put together, to pick 3 and then
Just bring it back.
bring it back?
I agree with that.
The next meeting is September 21st. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
That would have a cost associated with it.
Yeah.
That may be close to option 1. I think the cost associated with that, if I, let's see,
Can we go back
to
to option
alternate
one?
the centers, that cost would be similar.
Yeah, I can
To
narrow it
that.
down and get it to.
Options to add the brown goods.
We could have a mattress tie-down class.
Yeah.
And then cost and considerations.
You can
for
tie one
option
down,
one.
that thing will wiggle loose.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, it will.
Option
I
one.
never found a box spring. That's fine. I guess they
I'll
hold
go
on
one more.
to the mattresses.
I think we could get that cost pretty close to what we're looking at on the option 1 cost considerations. And if we implement it one center at a time, those would not be automatic up front. Those could be implemented over time. And by the time we mastered the program on what centers are identified, adding the routes, finding drivers. I mean, we can do all of these things, but if we don't have anyone to drive the vehicles to get the product from.
But at $12 an hour, I don't know how you're gonna get CDL drivers.
Right,
We train them up and then they go somewhere else.
right.
Well, it's gotten even to the point where they're not even willing to go get their license. The ones we've hired several, and several departments have, and give them 6 months to get it, then we give them extensions, and they just have no motivation. They just don't want to go, it's amazing. Anything else? Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And your staff.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
All in favor?